Okay, and welcome to the last one. This is it. This is the last video. Last thing we're going to cover in intermediate algebra, and this is the quadratic formula, which you have seen before. Pretty much everything we've done in intermediate you've seen before, you just may not have remembered it. So here's the deal with the quadratic formula. When we have solved quadratic equations so far, we have only had two methods available to us. Number one, if it factored, we could factor it, and then set those factors equal to 0, solve those, and that would give us the solutions. The problem is not everything factors. Some quadratics are prime. So then we did have, a couple of times back, we had this idea of the square root property, which certain quadratics can be written in that way, and you can use the square root property. But there are a bunch of quadratics that we have not been able to solve until now. So this is the quadratic formula, and this will solve any quadratic. Any quadratic that there is, this will solve. And this is it right here. If we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and that's important. We've got to have everything on one side of the equal sign, 0 on the other, and then a is always going to be the number in front of x squared, b is always the number in front of x, and c is always just our constant or just the number. Now it doesn't have to be the variable x, but whatever your variable is. Okay, but in that case, then your variable that you're solving for is going to be negative b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, and all of that is over 2a. Not just that part, even the minus b is over 2a also. So right here, all of this is arithmetic. If you've got this formula, you can go through and you can just plug the numbers in and get the answer. And that is what is beautiful about the quadratic formula. So let's do a problem by the quadratic formula. And I have one here, and it is 9x squared minus 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. So from the very beginning, this one's nice. Everything is on the same side as we want it to be. It's over here. We have equal to 0. We're good to go. We don't have to do any work to prepare this. So here's what we need to do. We need to find a, let me write this just a little over here, a and b and c. I told you, a is always the number in front of x squared, so it's going to be 9. b is always the number in front of x, so it's negative 5. And then finally, c is just going to be the number, and so c is negative 1, b is negative 5, a is 9. And what we're going to do is take these three numbers and plug them into this formula. All right? So x is equal to, all right, negative b, so minus negative 5 plus or minus square root negative 5 squared minus 4 times a, well, a is 9, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is 9. All right. So that's the first step, to put all your numbers in the right place. From this point on, it is all about simplifying the arithmetic. Now that marker is dying, so I'm going to switch to blue. So x is equal to minus negative 5 is just positive 5, plus or minus. All right, negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. Minus, all right, minus 4 times 9 is negative 36, times negative 1 is positive 36. All right. Minus 4 times 9 times negative 1 gives us plus 36. And all of that is over 18. Okay, and we are rolling on. What is 25 plus 36? Well, 25 plus 36 is 61. All right. And we've solved it. The only thing left that we might be able to do is, can we reduce this radical a little bit and then reduce the whole thing? So 61, well, the thing is 61's prime. I think, yeah, 61 is, you can't simplify that radical. So this is our answer. We did it. And again, just like with square root property, we have two answers here. We have one with plus. Okay, so we get 5 plus the square root of 61 over 18. And we get 5 minus the square root of 61 over 18. Both of those are answers. All right, and that's how the quadratic formula works. Now, I could do 73 examples with this, but I'm going to do one more. All right, but before I erase this, remember, you need everything on one side. You find your values for A, B, and C, and you plug them into this. And that's really all there is to it. All right. So here's the last one. 3x squared plus 8x equals -1. All right. This one is not right, is not ready. Because remember, to use the quadratic formula, we need it to be like this. We need everything on one side. So just the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1. Okay. And 3x squared plus 8x. Now, just because I wrote plus 1 under that 8x does not mean that I'm somehow going to add those together. I'm not. All right, plus 8x plus 1 equals 0. All right. What does this mean? This means A is 3, B is 8, and C is +1. Now, if you had not moved this over, all right, and just gone with it, you might have said that C was -1, and then you've gotten the wrong answer. All right, so let's do this. Let's take just a minute and appreciate the fact, though, that this is our last problem together. Makes me a little sad. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get started. I don't need that. I know how to do this. Okay, so x is going to equal to minus b, so minus 8, plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 1, all over 2 times a, which is still 3. All right. We've put the numbers in the right place. Everything else now is about reducing, doing the arithmetic and then reducing. All right. -8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 4 times 3 is 12 times 1, so this is 64 minus 12 over 6. Make that look a little more like a 4. All right. -8 plus or minus. Well, 64 minus 12 is 52. So I've got 52 over 6. All right. We've gotten to that point where the last thing we need to do, or the next to last thing actually, is we're going to look for, can we reduce 52? Now, I'm just going to come over here because I've got a little bit of free space. And I'm going to say, well, 52, that would be 2 times 26. And 26 is 2 times 13. So actually, I can rewrite this as -8 plus or minus. I can pull out a 2. All right, and the 13 stays under there. We're almost through. One last step. And I think I alluded to this the other day. But if I didn't, then here's what we're going to say. We can't do anything with that number under the radical. But here's how this works. We're going to look at the number here, the number in front of the radical, and the number on the bottom. And here's the rule. If we can divide all three of those by the same thing, then we're going to do it. So the question I'm asking is there a number that will divide -8? It will also divide 2. It'll also divide 6. The answer is yes, there is. And that is 2. 2 will divide all of those. So -8 divided by 2 is -4 plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm not going to write 1 times the square root of 13. I'm just going to write square root of 13. And then what is 6 divided by 2? It's 3. And we've done it. We have solved our last problem together. We have 2 answers. And those 2 answers are going to be -4 plus the square root of 13 over 3. And also we're going to get -4 minus the square root of 13 over 3. And that's it. Quadratic formula is very straightforward. Make sure your stuff's on the same side. Find your A, B, and C. Plug those numbers in. Be careful with signs. And remember that this -8's over that fraction 2. But other than that, they all work the same way. So I won't say until next time because this is the last time. But I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed the video part less than being in class together. But, you know, we do what we have to do.